Hey, Studio 108 community, welcome. I'm so glad you clicked on because I am very excited to be chatting with Nata. She is a spiritual teacher, a guide of the feminine energy, and a shaman-like light worker. And, and we're just going to unpack her background, her skill sets, and we want to do this. It's so important to me because she's coming to visit. So she's coming in for the holidays to see her family. And we've got a really inspiring gathering happening here called She Who Rises, Awakening the Divine Feminine. And Nata is bringing all kinds of medicines and practices and things that are for our benefit and for our upliftment. So thanks for sitting with us, Nata. Tell me about yourself.
Thanks for having me. It's such an honor to connect with sisters in the community, and as we're like weaving the web and coming across borders to weave the web, it's so lovely. So thanks for having me
It
here.
is lovely. You guys, did I say that Nada's from Toronto? So it's like, seriously, when she says across the border, she's like, across the border, swim in the lake, send in my vibes. So
A
we're
team, we're coming.
really
Yeah. So thanks, Ruthie. So what was your question? What's a little bit about me?
yeah, start where you like to start.
Sure. So thank you for the intro. Funny, I would never call myself like shaman-like, but I have been going through, shamanic-like initiations for a number of years, and I use shamanic practices and tools in my day-to-day and in my work. So that's really lovely that you kind of intuitively put that in there, and I was like, oh, okay.
You
So
send that vibe. So just picking up what you're putting down.
thank you, thank you. It's funny, no shaman that I know will call themselves a shaman. It's really sweet. It's very humbling. But even in that realm of being in between the both worlds and seeing the unseen and being really attuned, it's something that becomes of your daily path. And so that you're saying that I put it out there, I guess that makes sense because you were attuned, right? So we're kind of listening and hearing what's kind of going on. So that's just a snippet of my work. Above all, I'm a mom of two. I've been gallivanting on this planet for 40 years now, and really motherhood is what really was a even bigger catalyst in my deeper healing journey. I don't know how far back we want to go, but I felt maybe I'll just start. My awakening first happened when I was 11 years old, and I had a near-death experience where I was run over by a car, and it was interesting, like even reflecting on that and doing medicine ceremonies and coming back into that place, and how understanding that that was a huge catalyst to my spiritual journey. As much as people are like, wow, you have such bad luck. And I was like, that's an interesting point of view. Like, that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I was only 11. And so it was really interesting. Like, the car kind of rolled over my back and stopped right before my spine. And then that was the moment where I like did that full body, left my body, went to the light, the whole thing. And then I was just told, you need to go back. And I remember thinking, I have to go back because my mom would be so sad. And so I came back. And as the car released, I went, whoa. And I jumped up and I was like, wow, that was great. And
You
I
jumped
couldn't
up
believe,
literally?
jumped up like this. And my mom ran over and she's like, what are you doing? Don't move. We have to go. She's like freaking out. I'm like, wow. And I was then realized what God was, and was completely observing everybody around me and how they were in this trauma. You need to go to the hospital, internal bleeding. And I was just like, no, I'm fine. Like I knew I was fine. Um, and so we did all that. And that's, nothing that they're like, just monitor her. This is a miracle. And, after they called child services and did all these crazy things that people do. And I
So
remember
you're
like,
saying not only did you have a near-death experience, but you had like a miraculous lack of injury from that.
yeah, zero. Well, now I have like a slight curvature in my spine, which made sense because back then we didn't know about osteopathy. We didn't know about chiropractors. We didn't know about any of that. So over time, like my muscles just kind of pushed over because that trauma was something I was holding in my body. So later to be released. Yeah, exactly. Energetically later to be released years and years later. So yeah, so I'm like just jumped up and I just knew that I was fine. I was like, no, 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 that was crazy. And that's when I started to begin to understand, like begin to receive all these messages. Like, and I seeing auras, it was like stuff you don't talk about because you don't, it's not really normal, and nobody could really support me into it with it until like a couple years later when my cousin, who was 10 years older than me, kind of took me under her wing as a spiritual teacher and really helped me through a lot of stuff. And so it was just really interesting to get all these insights and not understand why other people weren't getting the same insights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then being like,
Especially when you lost your shield, like your human ego shield, so young that it was probably difficult to navigate where that boundary was and what things were coming in that were not available to just everybody, and what things that were coming in might be available to more people. That had to be a
exactly.
fascinating way to perceive the world through those years.
Fascinating, yet also not understanding why it was happening. I didn't connect that it happened because of my near death experience, right? I didn't connect it till like later on in my life, and even like working with psychedelics and therapy and like opening those states of consciousness is similar and equivalent to near death experiences.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, oh, no wonder, because I would have these insights and they're like, how do you know that? And I was like, well, what do you mean? How do I know that? Yeah, I God told me. Like, so that didn't make a lot of sense to people. And then that caused me to numb out. So by 13, I then started smoking cigarettes and I was hiding, and then started drinking really young, and culturally, like my culture drinks a lot. And that was like, okay, I'm older and I can drink because I'm so evolved. And then I really numbed myself out.
Right.
And then around like 13, 14, my cousin kind of could witness me what I was going through. And she kind of just pulled me under her wing. I still continued to do like smoking and drinking and kind of all that kind of stuff. Um, but she could see that I had gifts. And so she got me into astrology. I had my first tarot deck when I was 13, like I had all these like just these little seeds that she just kind of giving me, like, here you go, this will help you, and this will help you, and this will help you, and this will help you kind of explore and intuitively grow and learn to really I learned to really over 30 years almost to really master these gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how we struggle to like utilize our strengths
Mhm.
and our capacities. And even like through my lifetime and the awakening of my intuitive capacity, like how to become reliable and in trust with it. And I don't want to say in command of it, because by nature there seems to be something that's not necessarily commandable, at least for me. I can come to request of it, but not necessarily to command of it. And to be in relationship with it in a way that lets it serve me instead of terrify me, or serve me instead of me being at the whim of it. Like all of that is, I think, probably a lifetime of self-discovery.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're always like refining. And at first I'm like, this is a curse. Like, how do I know all these things and
Yeah.
predictions and just knowing things? And then as I got older, I would be able to tune into people's bodies and then know exactly what was like going on with their bodies and like with children. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what do
Yeah.
you do with all this?
TMI,
Like, oh,
like I
it's
don't want to know.
very yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, your baby's like, yeah, anemic, and like just all these things I was able to tune into. But that also came through my own health problems, dis-ease, the dis-ease that I was manifesting in my body. And that was a huge component in my 20s, was healing my body. And like after like the teens of self-sabotage and like all the discord that happened and the chaos and like this whatever I was doing in order to pull myself out of it in many ways, really allowed me to attune to what a high vibrational body is. And then when I would drop in that frequency and match other, and then I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I could tell like exactly what detox they needed. If they were on technology too much, like all the interferences that come with our energetic body was really
They
powerful.
have like a signature or an imprint to you. You get them in a way that feels really like clear and specific about what that is.
Yeah, and sometimes like teenagers, I can see them in different colors. Like they'll like a lot of teenagers are presenting like really gray green kind of vibrations. Almost like, yeah, I don't even like to say much about that, but like there's energetics when you're on technology, and there's energetics and infiltration that happens through technology, and like, and
Mm.
especially if they're gaming and stuff, like it's like an interesting vibe. And maybe because I work in the realms, I can really, see the unseen and what's kind of happening. So it's been a dance.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I love just the possibilities that open up. Like when we listen to folks who are gifted like you in a certain way, and you describe your experience, it it gives us a hmm, like a pattern or a structure through which to understand how things work. And so different people might have different ways of processing energy and seeing energy and decoding kind of what they're seeing. But anytime it's described to me, I'm like really grateful because it gives me paradigms or structures in which I'm like, okay, so this is how this works for her. Let me feel into that, because it's like when you talk about it, you could almost gift or transmission a little bit of just awakening of the possibility of it. And not to say that it's like a gift of the gift, but it's like, an awareness of a potential capacity that I think you would probably agree on some level we all have, just isn't actualized yet.
Yeah, actualized, or our channels aren't purified enough
Yeah.
to receive. There's a lot of infiltration of energies and stuff that happens in the body, and that will block certain things in our body. I won't go into that right now. That's a whole other podcast. So once we purify those channels, then we're able to have a stronger connection to source, and that will allow us to be in the I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness, because the awarenesses will amplify. That's what we don't like, that's what we kind of forget. And even when we're working in certain realms or spiritual work, or working with plant medicines, we're actually opening these channels, these deeper awarenesses. Now again, that comes to a level of, are you going to greet this with fear, or are you going to greet this as loving awareness?
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Which is, the backdrop to just like everything we do. I know today I sent out, I had to send out an email with a certain factual information to it, but like I kind of throw it on the page and then I go back and scan for, um, is the language fear-based? Is the language opportunity-based? Is the language respectful and kind, and not like it's going to be nasty, but like there's a nuance to that. And so like to constantly be self-aware and self-witnessing, to kind of say like my languaging says a lot about the backdrop or the background of my subconscious and what I'm actually saying. it's
mhm.
it's
And
like
that's
they're
such a
all
that's such a
sources of energy.
yeah, that's a powerful transmission as someone who, is a facilitator of beautiful spaces, to be able to have that level of consciousness and understanding of what energy am I putting out, in my newsletters. Like that's beautiful. And I just want to celebrate you for that, because that takes a lot of understanding of your own self and your own, if we just tap into the universal laws, and the law of attraction, what I put out is what I receive. So are we putting out more fear? Because I think there's enough of that. There's enough of that.
And plenty, and also recognizing that that is contagious. There's a contagion stickiness to that. And like I brush my teeth every day because the things I eat stick and they cloud. And so like I have to every day do my practices to make sure that that just pollution, the energetic pollution of being in society and being in the world, doesn't taint or stick or kind of pull me out of what I want to be aligned to. In Kundalini Yoga, we talk about God, like generating, organizing, and delivering of energy. And so that projection is something that comes through, that lineage and that practice for me. But yeah, so when you come and do this workshop, I'm so very excited. I know you've got breath work, you've got some meditation, you've got some channeling you'll be doing. You're coming in to do this for family, and we're just opening this up to the Studio 108 community. So I'm really, really grateful that we can offer this to people. But since they don't know you, I kind of wanted to unpack some of that just so that folks would have a little bit of what to expect. And you're coming to Cleveland, Ohio. And so in particular, the plant medicines and like what kinds of medicines you're bringing. And I'm really excited to just create some positive relationship around some of these plants that are nourishing and medicinal and supportive that people don't really need to be afraid of at all.
Yeah, yeah. So just disclaimer, there's no psychoactive components to these medicines that I'll be working with. Just so you all know.
So you know, just
However, yeah, however, we can access certain states through breath work, which is really beautiful. The type of breath work we'll be practicing for this particular one is more of a somatic breath work. It's about being in the body. Oftentimes, we get triggered, something happens where we kind of leave our bodies, right? And then that kind of keeps us in a disconnection. So first we'll be like, not in any particular order, but the breath work will be a somatic breath work where we're doing mouth breathing and really upwards and just like lifting. And the prompts will be there just to bring awareness to your body. Like, what's showing up in your body right now? Like, what are you feeling right now? And this is a great release. This is where we release a lot of tears. There is a lot of shaking if someone's holding a lot of trauma in their body. And maybe things that happen, you're just like, whoa, like who knew that was going to happen? And that's okay. That's where we create these containers where we feel really nourished, we feel really safe. And there is something really special about when women gather together, and I call us sisters because we're sisters. All of us are sisters. And we are gathering and weaving our wisdom and here of service so that other people can feel powerful in their bodies and to be in their bodies. Oftentimes, like I said, like we leave our bodies so much. We're not even aware how much we leave our bodies.
Yeah, we leave our bodies as an exit door, but then also we have a lot of practices that support us in leaving our bodies for a more blissful, happy experience of ourselves. And so, like, in the name of spirituality, sometimes we kind of escape to places, which can be very helpful and very useful, but also a little avoidant. So this anchoring into the physical form and somatics is so important right now, because I feel like you've got to kind of get in there if anything's going to heal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this also like it strengthens not only our connection with our body, it strengthens our like interoceptive awareness. Like we are become more aware. We become even more aware of like what's actually not jiving with me right now. And this is where we learn sacred boundaries and being okay to say, you know what, I'm not going to go to this event because I don't feel so good when I go to these types of events. And I'm going to choose to do this instead because my body feels really good when I do this. Right. And just
Absolutely.
teaching these practices to feel really good in our bodies.
And
And that's strength.
there's something about kind of knowing what feels good to the body, in the body, in terms of just figuring out where our truth is and where our alignment is. So like I say a lot of times, like, that's just not aligned for me. And then it gives that permission to be okay and me permission to be okay. And what I'm really saying is there's a truth in me that I want to honor and recognize. And that just doesn't seem like it's going to be for me. But generations of people pleasing, that's how I've come to
It's just
him.
kind of how we were trained, that's one of the first thing I work with like my clients is just like, okay, so where are you people pleasing? And be really honest with yourself. And every time you dishonor yourself, because you dishonor yourself each time you try and please others without tuning into yourself. Because then we're like, well, I don't want to explain why I don't want to go and I don't want to be me. And it's just like, yeah, but so what are you saying about yourself? Like, so you're just like, oh, you don't matter. Like, so it's really about also like attuning to that inner child where we need to be seen and where we need to just be so tuned into our bodies, and not needing to explain or over explain, right? Like, I don't feel
And being
aligned.
okay not knowing. Like sometimes, like,
Yes.
I don't know what's true for me. Like I just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not going to go here because my body doesn't align to it. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And that's, you know, what I learned from that near that first accident. Um, Intuitively, when I was asked to go and do what I was asked to do in that moment, I knew I wasn't supposed to go. And
Wow.
I was like, no, 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 no. And they're like, come on, don't be so lazy. You got it. You're so lazy. And I was just like, oh, okay, fine. I won't be lazy. Right. And I knew. And that's what happened because I went against my intuition.
Wow.
Fast forward in my 20s, I was asked to go to a party at a friend's house up north. And I was like, honestly, I, I usually, I'm a Leo. I like to go. I like to be around people. I'm a vibe. Like, I just love it. And I was like, no, I'm not supposed to go. And my best friend came over at the time and she was just like, no, you're coming with me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Mom, I don't think I'm supposed to. She's like, don't go then. Don't go. And, you know, sure enough, I gave into pure pressure, knowing.
Remember
So I
peer
went,
pressure? Oh my God.
right? So
Yeah.
this is the spiritual initiations intensify, right? And I remember even before that was happening, I remember praying. I was like, God, I just need to change my course. Like I feel like I'm not in alignment, and I just want to be aligned. Well, sure enough, we're at this party. My friend's like, let's go home, and I was like, look outside the window. It's a snowstorm. We're an hour from home. No, no, I want to go home. And I was just like, drop the keys. I'm like, sure, if you want to kill us, here you go. And sure enough, we got on the highway. We spin out within 3 seconds onto the highway and smash into a guardrail. And then I was so just channeled, and I was just like, and it's like the divine went like this and pushed us to the side of the highway. And I was like, wow, wow. I mean, if that wasn't, if that wasn't special, I don't know what was. And again, intuitively, I knew I wasn't supposed to go. But I went against it because I gave into peer pressure, into somebody else's energy and their projection of what I should be doing. Because I gave into the guilt, right? Because we feel people so deeply, and I could feel her so deeply. And then, of course, the fear of missing out. But this is if I could teach people just tune in. And it helped me as a mother too, so many times, just listening to my intuition. So big, big, big lessons. And this is that these practices, these specific, these breath works, these channelings, gathering in sisterhood, sitting in prayer, listening to what we are all navigating. We're all in some sort of, you know, need of deeper surrender, but right now we're in some suffering, right? And the more that we tune into other people, then we can say, oh, okay, so how can we alchemize this energy, right? How can we utilize this force, so we can ground this and be aware now of what we're actually calling in and work with these energies to actually call in. And that takes us being in our bodies. Yes, we can leave our bodies and meditate and channel and do all these things, but in a day-to-day, being in your body is what's going to tune you to your intuition.
100%. 100%. I've trained a lot of yoga teachers, and
Mhm.
um, a lot of them kind of floats. And
Mhm.
when we talk about chakras, I always, Route 77 is the freeway that comes through the city here. And I always talk about the energy needs to be like 77. It flows from north to south and from south to north. It has to channel in both ways. If we can't draw the energy down through the physical form and anchor it here in the earth, we're not going to actualize our dharmic path, our dharmic purposes. We're not going to just create within our lives what needs to happen. And so it's super appealing to kind of be that elevated one. But for most of us in the world today, if we want to serve ourselves and through that serve humanity, like we just need to anchor really seriously. And I love that you talk about, you've said several times now, like the sisterhood and the group and the togetherness, because I think historically that's been how women have maintained and reclaimed their power. And if we can say now more than ever, please, like, please, when one person's energy rises in frequency, Nata and I were talking about Hawkins scale, how that exponentially increases the frequency of the whole. So one very elevated person is actually offsetting quite a bit of anger, hatred, fear, and negativity on the planet. But why don't you take that and just run with it for a while? Because I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. It's so special because there've been a lot of projections, and I have a lot of compassion for the sisterhood and for, the lifetimes of injustice that was done against the feminine, and many of us still walk with those wounds, whether we're aware of it or not. We walk with those wounds. We walk with that judgment, with that hatred, with the resentment, with the shame and the guilt. Um, and unfortunately, it's, being projected into the field. And when we attune to higher realms, we can feel all that. I can feel exactly when someone is judging me or jealousy or whatever it may be. And what my work is to bring it into my heart, to transmute it into love, and to send it back. Because, I was there one time, where I used to see women that were so powerful. I'm like, oh, look at them. They're rich. They have money. They have this. And I'm not going to be, and then when I lifted the veil, and I could just see in the core, and it was actually the first time I sat with ayahuasca, that really changed my life. It was a really big propeller in my awakening. Actually, I had a spontaneous kundalini awakening after that ceremony, and that state of bliss was amazing. But the chaos that comes after, I don't think anybody's really prepared for when it comes to spontaneous awakenings. And
Thank you for that
Madri
wisdom.
show. Sorry.
That's wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that too. Um, and Madri showed me really that in the purity of our hearts, we are just love. And yet we have these wounds that we carry. And I was able to see lifetimes of being burned at the stake, and my children being taken away from me, and witches, and all of these things that, they're not just folk tales for a reason. They actually told the tales of what was something we grew out of. And then working, with the wisdom of Mary Magdalene and how she was written out of the Bible. Like, I was just like, and tuning into her vibrancy and her essence and her purity, of sisterhood is what
Yeah.
really ignited this
I
knowing.
mean,
And
this
from
is our
that,
history. This is our
this is our,
history.
this is our history. This is our history. And this is the projections that have been passed along, even through the masculine in our lives, just because that's all that they knew. That's all that they knew. And this summer, I had an opportunity to go heal some generational trauma in my home country of Serbia. And I was listening to my grandfather, my grandmother's brother, speak about a witch in the village, that there was a witch. And as he shared this story, I could see the unsettling unrealness of that it was a projection that he was told, that was then just passed along, passed along, passed along. This woman was ended up being burned at the stake. And for something that she did. And that was just like, it's so present in our ancestry. It's so present in our ancestry. And it really just kind of like jolted me, of like reminding me to just be super anchored and to be super in this field of love, and that my healing is the healing that will send out a ripple to everywhere I go, and so even when I see young adults and women, my heart is just like so open and loving and curious about what they're going through right now, because the programs are so thick. But I've learned really to just be embodied, to be confident in who I am, to be confident in my connection, and that I'm here to serve. And whether I'm received or not is okay, because there's people who will receive me, and who I also open my heart to receive their wisdom. And so that's like this reciprocity, right?
100%.
So
And
it's
I also think it's important to recognize that the exposure is a gift. And so for you to say, consider this, and someone to say, no, thank you, they were exposed. And that has created an energetic shift within that, whether they receive it or they decline it, So
yeah,
it's really important for us to remember that there isn't necessarily a rejection unless we anchor it that way.
oh,
Every single offering has a lot of energetic value to it.
absolutely. And it's an injustice if we don't share, right?
Yeah.
Because what if that will ripple out, and maybe you're not interested, maybe the person beside you, or maybe they feel it in your field, and that affects, these other women or these other men or whoever. So it's like this constant rippling effect. and being courageous. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to put yourself out there and, to hold spaces and to have clinics and to go at, maybe not so what the norm is doing, right? It takes a lot of courage. I even knew, like, I really found that really a big chapter of my life. And maybe because I have so much fire in my chart, like I'm just here to like
Yeah.
blaze through stuff. Um, and like as a mother and choosing to have home births and choosing not to go the medical way and choosing all these different things because I was attuned to my truth. And it was hard because like a very small percentage was doing that and like almost none of my friends were doing that. But then interesting, like things fizzle and fade and then like these other doors open and these new possibilities and new friendships open where you're like, wow, okay, like this is like a whole other world here. And that really, and that's like, okay, God, just please show me love. Like, just show me that I'm doing this work for something, that I'm not the only one. And then God starts to ripple and trickle all these little blessings, much like yourself, into my life. Where I'm like, thanks, that was just so beautiful. And just even like how we're having this conversation because a dear sister in my life is a dear sister in your life and was just like,
Yeah.
you two need to meet, you
Absolutely.
know?
And I forgot to mention it at the beginning, you guys. Here's how Nata came into my world. My friend Michelle helps me out with some things once in a while, including here at the studio. And she said, "Are you her sister-in-law, right?
We're
Cousin."
cut my her, yeah, her, I'm married, she's married to my cousin.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good. So like cousin-in-law-ish kind of thing. And she said, Nada's really groovy. You'd really like her. She's a lot like you. I think you'd really like her. And she's coming in and she was thinking about doing a something. And I was like, yes to the something, yes to Nada. Let's go. And when I saw all your stuff, I was just like, this feels really, really good. I hope you had that feeling. I always wonder, like, because you send a vibe, I send a vibe. It's like really exciting that there can be a conversation that starts without the barrier, a conversation that can just start really authentically and honestly from a level of an open heart. And so, yeah, so I was super happy to meet Nada. That's the story of how she came to me. Yay.
Yeah.
So she's coming from Toronto. So we'll have to welcome her.
Yeah.
She has family here in Parma, North Royalton, Medina. The families lived around the area here.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Super
Yeah.
exciting.
I'll also
And
touch on if you want, I can touch on the cacao. So we'll
yeah,
be
do that.
working with cacao. And if you haven't had a traditional, I'm not going to say traditional, I work with ceremonial cacao from Guatemala. It's very, very powerful medicine. And it's especially like for the divine feminine embodiment, it really is such a beautiful and gentle heart opener. And you can really, after you have this medicine, she really works on opening your heart. And it's just she's gentle and she's loving and she's full of all these like beautiful, and I'll touch on it when we go in there, but like all these beautiful ways to just like open, and helps us with the breathing and helps us with the relaxation and just really attunes us all. And when we all sit with the same medicine, we're attuned to that medicine, right? And we'll have an altar and we'll have, our intention setting, and then we'll alchemize that with this medicine and then go into the breath work, which is also going to be really beautiful. So
that's really
if you
beautiful.
haven't
And
worked with
some people in the
cacao,
community have had cacao. Some people in the
beautiful.
community have had cacao. We've done some at full moon circles, definitely in Costa Rica. When I took a retreat, we had cacao ceremony.
Yeah.
But so I know that that's one that I think people will be ready for. And if you are interested in coming and you haven't partaken in it, it's just delightful and lovely. And yeah, definitely
Yeah.
a beautiful share. And then what else? You'll have Palo Santo.
Well, we'll typically open the space with just Palo Santo, just smudging the field, and it's such
Yeah.
a grounding bark too. And then we'll do some breath and some meditation and some sharing too, because there's a lot that comes out of this. And maybe you'll like tune into something that's releasing from your body, or you'll have a memory of something that comes up, and it's beautiful just to speak that at the end, to just share that so that you know that like you're going to let go of this pain and we don't need to hold on to it. And I really love the intention of like when I meet anyone in circle, like we're like connected, we're sisters, like we are, there's no there's no fluke that we're all sitting in
Oh,
circle together. There's no like coincidence that we're having this conversation. Out of all the millions of people in North America, we're having this conversation. So I just feel like the coming together, what we're anchoring on the lands and working with, just honoring the lands and the indigenous that walked on those lands, First Nations people, is such a beautiful blessing when we open the ceremonial space. And that's how I typically open our ceremony space, just to invite the spirits in, invite our ancestors of completion in. And that always makes it such a beautiful vibe, just to like really feel into that. It's funny when one of my friends reflected to me. He says, Nata, when you walk in a room, it's so powerful. And I said, brother, I don't walk in alone. Like I'm never alone, like I walk in with like my people. We don't see them, but they're there. And like that energetic presence is something that in the divine feminine frequency and potency of how potent we are as the feminine, the masculine equally important, and the masculine within ourselves. So the integration of the two energies is the most important journey, I feel, because that's when we really get to play with so I should say play in like a lighthearted way. That's when we really can alchemize and call in and magnetize all the things that we're here to do. And it's when we learn to merge those energies, feel good in our bodies, feel embodied, feel like, oh, I just released, that breath work just released like 10 years of grief that I was carrying. And that's so beautiful because, oftentimes we carry so much, we carry it. And we think that we care. I care, so I'm going to carry all your stuff. I care. No, well, that's really cute. Like we can care, but we don't need to carry, right? The point is to come into our light bodies. And that is like these activations that when we go through these energetic activations and holding spaces together, this is what we do. We're going to leave with the right elevated frequency. It's just how it goes. It's just like you will feel the elevation in your frequency. And then we leave with a sense of sisterhood and a deeper sense of purpose. So
yeah. And
I really look forward
connection. I mean, how
to
healing is a connection? How grounding is connection? Like that whole root area is like, I feel safe. We feel safe when we're connected. That's really the beauty of it. So I'm so grateful to you for like calling in the opportunity to just say, let's create a circle. Let's do it on this day, on this time. What day and time is it? It's Friday. I was writing down everything and I forgot to write down the date. Is it 6:30 to 8:30 or did we say 6?
Friday, November the 29th.
29. And it's from
Yeah.
6 to 8:30, you guys. It's 2.5 hours. Oh, and I'm going to play the bowls. I'll have my crystal
Yeah.
orchestra out. So yeah. So we'll
Yeah,
find.
and so we're going to merge the crystal bowls, and I'll speak over it just to guide into like a gentle kind of easing us into the space. And that's after we drink the cacao, and then we'll go into a little bit of a music journey. I have beautiful music that I play, and that will kind of send us in a journey and breath, and then we'll come out just like elevated. And I am looking forward to meeting you in person and meeting your community. And I know that what we anchor what we anchor as the divine feminine is what really ripples out. And I really got to experience that a few years ago when I hosted a divine feminine retreat, a festival for 80 women. And to this day, it's like, it makes me cry when I see any of these sisters in Toronto because they're like, wow. And I'm like, I know, like, it's just the deepest remembrance of unity and love and why we're here. So
Yeah.
thank you for
We
trusting
will.
in me to use your space. And
Absolutely. Well, we're really going to create a marker in that time space moment. And what's lovely about it is that it has a signature to it. And once you have been a part of that time space moment in this community, you'll have that anchor and you can return to it when you need one deep breath and you're back there and you can source and you can nourish yourself again and again and again from this beautiful offering. So Nata, we all want to walk out with Nata vibes.
yeah, but thank you for saying that. I want to mention that. So last week, a sister had called me, and her baby niece had passed away at 7 months. And I said, sister, she messaged me and I said, sister, I'm here for you, whatever you need. If you need to cry, I'm here. I'll hold space for you. I'm not here to, just hold space. So she messaged me that evening and she's like, I need you to just hold me while I cry. So I called her because we live about an hour apart. I called her and we got on the phone and I sat and I lit my medicine. I had frankincense burning and I lit a candle and we tuned into the spirit of her niece um and in that moment I was like, I need enforcement right now. And of course spirit is here, but I needed the feminine. And so I tuned into the goddess portal, the anchoring of the 80 sisters that I called in. And I said, Sister, I have a song to share for you, that this is coming through, that I sing this song for you right now. And after she had shared and she cried, and about right when we were wrapping up our call, and I sang this song to her, and it's called Please Prepare Me. And I could feel every single woman. I could feel Grandmother Willow, the willow tree that we stood under for our opening ceremony. And I was so deeply anchored. Yes, I could feel her grief. Yes, I could feel every single mother's grief on this planet that is grieving the loss of a child or someone they loved. But I also felt the support of this planet, the support of the sisterhood that is rising, who have risen. We have risen. And everything that we are here to do. And in that, she left this conversation, which was always my intention, that people that leave conversations with me or my field is that they leave empowered, they feel energized and elevated no matter what they are going through. And I said, Sister, feel the grief. Allow yourself to feel the grief. And after I got off the phone with her, I felt the grief of all those women, all the mothers, every single one. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And then I released it and I let it go. And I let it go with the medicines that burn and the fire that burns within us all. And I let it go because I don't need to carry it. I feel it every day. I don't need to carry it. And from there, she just messaged me, says, thank you. That was the greatest gift that I could have received in this moment. Because there are gifts, even in these deepest moments of suffering, we can find those gifts. So thank you for mentioning that.
So lovely. So very lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so already, heart opening already. I hope you felt that as I did, like the deep love that comes from Nata, and how she serves as a trigger for our own experiences of love and upliftment. All right, are you going to join us? I hope so. Sign up. Because Nata is traveling and she's coming in, I'm asking for cash only for this one. The donation, $33 or anything, beyond that you feel compelled to give is really, really appreciated. But please bring that in cash for her. And do you Zelle or something like that? Maybe Venmo or anything, electronics?
PayPal.
PayPal. Okay, so there's an electronic option if you prefer. All right.
Yeah.
But just want to lay that out there. And maybe a journal. Sometimes a journal is nice.
Journals are great.
How about if people have a mug and would like to bring their own mug, we can do that.
Yeah.
Would be lovely.
A comfy blanket, whatever kind of makes you feel comfy and nourished in that time.
Yep. We have lots of blankets and bolsters here to use, but people are welcome to bring comfort items for themselves. And we also have paper cups, but if you'd like to bring a little mug from your home, then that's nice too.
And if there's something they want to put around the altar, because we'll be, our energies, our alchemization will be
now I'm
charging
making a list.
Yeah. Maybe they want to leave with something for like charge their crystal or a picture or whatever, or send a prayer to someone, maybe their picture. We can do that as too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm making a list.
Yeah.
All right. It'll be in the notes, you guys, along with Nata's website and social media links, so that you can find her and stay connected to her message, even if you are or are not able to attend the event. Thank you, Nata. Go with many blessings and remember who you are.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for following, you guys. Thanks so much.